Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis and welcome to our next video lesson. We're going to be talking about a program that converts letters to the appropriate ASCII number and then that ASCII number back to the characters. So basically ASCII to character conversion, as you can see here in the handout. And then the bottom part of the program, what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate a label by changing its capitalization to uppercase and lowercase. We're also going to modify the alignment. And then we'll also give the user the opportunity to change the fonts, such as clicking Arial, Courier, Times New Roman, within a list box. Down here you see some of the different software requirements and some of the different names for the controls that you're going to add to the form. So let's go ahead and transfer over to Visual Studio. In Visual Studio you can see that I've already designed the form. Let me show you some of the different properties so that your form will match mine. First of all, in terms of this text box, you'll want to make sure that we have the appropriate names. So this text box will be TXT user letter. This button will be BTN, character to ASCII, and then this label will be LBL ASCII result. Also make sure that the border style is set to fixed single. Now you're going to notice that this is within a group box. Now the group box I didn't name, I didn't give a specific name because we're not going to be referring to it programmatically. And the way it works out in terms of group boxes is you'll drag and drop a group box to the form, and then you'll go ahead and add items within it. So you'll see a group box here, here's another group box. Within this group box we have two additional group boxes, capitalization and alignment. To add a group box to the form, it's pretty easy. What you'll do is you'll just simply go to the toolbox and then look under containers. In the containers section you'll see the group box. You can just simply drag and drop the group box to the form, and then you can drag content into the group box. So for example, if I wanted to drag two radio buttons, I'll drag this one over here, and let me drag one more radio button into the group box. Okay, here we go. So now these two radio buttons have a grouping or a relationship together within this particular group box. And in fact, if I were to delete this group box, you'll see that the two radio buttons are deleted as well. Okay, so that's how group boxes work and how you can drag and drop them to the form. So what you're going to do within this group box is you're going to drag and drop this text box, which is TXT user num. This button is going to be BTN ASCII to character. This label is LBL character result. Within the formatting group, we have a capitalization group box. And then within that, we're going to have two radio buttons. This one's going to be RDB uppercase. So the Hungarian notation for radio buttons is RDB. So you'll say RDB uppercase. This one will be RDB lowercase. Within this alignment group, you're going to have three radio buttons: RDB left, RDB center, RDB right. And then we just simply have a label here that says font. And then this is a list box. So in the toolbox area, I just simply dragged and dropped this list box and dragged it over here to this group, formatting group, and we're going to label that LST fonts. And then finally we have a label down here, and that's just simply a 3D label output. It says LBL output for the name, and what I meant before was the border style is fixed 3D. And then you're simply going to type in the text to be or not to be within quotation marks, so that as we change the formatting, it'll automatically change the contents of the label. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the list box. If you wanted to design content within the list box, or to put content in here, what you would do is this. Locate the items property, and then you'll see the button with the three ellipses. If you were to click that button, you can type in whatever content you want. For example, let me go ahead and type in Arial, Courier New, and Times New Roman. Let me just add some additional fonts like Brush Script, Algerian, Arial Narrow, so forth and so on. Click OK, and now notice that the list box does exactly that. It gives you a list. In fact, it automatically generates a scroll box as well, or scroll bar, if you have content that doesn't fit within the size of the list box. So that's how you would include items yeah, that's right, items within a list box, you would just simply click on the items collection and go from here. I'm going to go ahead and delete all these items and click OK, because another way that I want to show you how to do this is programmatically, how to include items within a list box. All right, so that takes care of the graphical user interface. Let's now take a look at the code. So in the code section, the first thing that we'll do is we'll work on this button over here, which is going to convert whatever the character is that was entered. We want to convert that to the appropriate ASCII code and then display it here on the label. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to use the ASCII function. And you notice what the ASCII function does. It says that it's going to return an integer representing the character code corresponding to the character. So what you need to do is you need to provide text to this. In this case, what does it require? It looks like it requires a string. Well, how do we get that string? We're going to take the text from the text box, user letter, which is this guy right here. So we take that text, we submit it to the ASCII function, and then what is this thing going to return? Well, you'll see that it returns an integer. Well, I need to display that integer into a text box, so that's why I need to convert it to a string and then put it into the text of a label. And so that means it's going to place it into this label right here. Similarly, for convert to character, what we're going to do is we're going to use this function called character. And what it does is it receives an integer and it returns a character. So what we'll do is we'll take the text from txt user number, and that's going to be this text right here. So the user enters a number in here. Say, for example, they click this button, and then the character is going to be represented here in this label. Well, notice what I have to do. After I've obtained that text, I have to convert that to a number because that's what this function character expects. Once I've done that, I could place a character into a string or into the text property of this particular label. All right, next let's take a look at the formatting section. The formatting section really deals with this label over here. What we want to do is we want to either uppercase it, lowercase it, make the alignment left, center, right, and then we also want to be able to change the font. Now, when you're first designing a group box with radio buttons in it, you'll have to pick whatever the default radio button status is going to be. So you'll notice over here on the properties, for the checked property specifically, notice that this one is checked, as you can see here. Now, if I select uppercase, you'll see that it's not checked. So over here in the checked, it's set to false. So I deliberately set this one to checked and this one to checked because that's how my default situation is, or the default condition is for this particular label. That is, it's lowercase and it's centered. So I want to make sure that I'm consistent in that way. All right. If the user clicks uppercase, and I want that to change to uppercase, so let me double click this so I can change the code, and notice what happens. It takes me to the RDB uppercase checked changed event. Well, in the event that there is a change, that is that I've selected this particular radio button, I want to uppercase the label. So I'll take that label, specifically the text, and I want to change it to uppercase. And that's how this works out. To upper, open and close parentheses, is going to change the text to uppercase. And then you can see here, we're just simply reassigning that right back to the label. In a similar fashion, for lowercase, I'll double click on that. And again, it takes me to the check changed event. And I'm going to take the label, specifically the text within that label, and change it to lowercase. And then I'm going to go ahead and reassign it right back to the label. For the alignment, let me double click on left, and that's pretty easy. What we're doing is we're just simply saying for that LBL output label, which is this guy right here, for that particular label, let's change the text alignment. So notice that I'm not changing text this time, I'm changing the text alignment. So what text align does is it gives you different options. In fact, consider this. As soon as I hit the space bar here, you'll see that it gives you a listing of all the different content alignments. Well, in this case, RDB left means I want it to be centered left, and you have a couple of options here. You have bottom left, middle left, and top left. I'll select middle left, and that takes care of that radio button. Similarly, we're going to do the same thing to center and also to right. So in this case, I have middle center for the label if the user clicks this particular radio button. And then if the user clicks the right radio button, again, we're going to change that to middle right for the text alignment property. Finally, in reference to the list box, let me go ahead and double click this, and that's going to take me into the list box selected index change. Now here's how it works out. The first item has an index of 0. the second item has an index of 1. The third item has an index of 2. So in other words, indices always start off with 0. Well, if I want the first item listed to be the word Arial, and if the user clicked it, that's what this statement is saying. If the user clicked the first item, or the 0 index, then I want to change the I want to change the font to Arial. So how am I going to do that? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to instantiate a new font. So that label, which is down here, this label, I need to change its font property. Now you know in Design View that you can do this. For example, if I open up the Properties panel, and if I take a look at the font, one of the things that I can do is change the name, the size, the unit, bold, so forth and so on, right? So I can change these properties for font. Programmatically speaking, here's how you would do it. You would need to instantiate a new font, and that's what exactly equals new does. It instantiates or creates a new font. And what are the conditions of that font? Well, in this case, it's going to be the Arial font. So what you do is you just simply, within quotes, type the name of the font that's on your computer. In this case, it's Arial, 12 point, and the font style is going to be regular. That is, it's not bold, it's not italic, it's not underline or strike through, say, for example. So what we've done here is we've instantiated a new font object with these parameters, and now this label is going to assume that particular font, which is Arial 12 new. Now, if the user selects the second option in the list box, and that's what this statement says, else if listfonts.selected index equals 1, then that means I want that to be Courier. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to list this thing as Courier new. And again, 12 point, font regular, and that's going to go inside, or that's going to change the font, I should say, of that label. And then finally, if the user selects the third option, which is going to display Times New Roman, then again, we're going to instantiate a new font with Times New Roman 12 points and then regular font style, and we'll change the font property for this particular label. Now, you'll notice that it's not displaying any of these items in the list box, and if I go up to the top here, you'll see that I've created a form load sub. So what I have to do is I have to click Form 1 Events here. So then I have to click over here and then select, you'll scroll down and then select the load event. Alright, and so that's going to go ahead and create a Form 1 load sub. And then within this sub, remember, this is the sub that runs first when you initially execute a program. This is the first thing to be executed. What am I saying in this case that I want the program to do? Well, in this case, I want to take that list box, which is this guy over here. I want to take the list box and I want to add some items to it. What's the first item? It's the word Arial. What's the second item? Courier new. What's the third item? Times New Roman. And then, which one of these do I want to be selected by default? Well, I want the first one to be selected. So I'll say this last statement is the set selected function within for this particular list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the first one is supposed to be selected, which is index 0. And do I want that, in fact, to be selected? Yeah, true. So you'll see over here where it says set selected, it says selects or clears the selection for the specified item in this particular list box. In fact, if I were to do this, you'll see what the options, oops, sorry. There we go, yeah. So you'll see what the options are in this case. Whatever the index is, well, in this case it's going to be Arial, so that's going to be index 0. And then over here, we're going to select the value of a Boolean, which is true to select the specified item, otherwise false. Well, obviously I want it to be true. Okay, and that's it. So let's run the program, take a look at this. Okay, so here's the program, and in this case we're going to enter a character. So if I enter the character A, say for example, and then click, convert to ASCII, notice that 97 comes up. And then if I were to type 97 over here for the ASCII number, convert to character, that's the letter A. What about capital A? So if I type in capital A, click convert to ASCII, that's the number 65. Obviously, if I type number 65 and click convert to character, there's the capital letter A. And of course, this works with symbols as well. For example, the $sign. What's the ASCII character for that? That's 36. What's the ASCII character for ampersand, say, for example? That's going to be 38. So if I typed in 38 over here, click convert to character. I'm not sure why it's not giving me character here. All right, so finally, if I type in ampersand and find out that's 64, if I type 64 over here, click convert to character, you see that 64 appears here. In terms of the label, if I click uppercase, you'll see it changes it to uppercase. If I click lowercase, it changes it back to lowercase. I can also change the alignment by clicking any of the alignment radio buttons. And then, of course, if I click the actual font in the list box, it's going to change to that appropriate font type. All right, so that's it. This is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this has been helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.